Welcome back to another episode of the Vendetta Sports Fantasy Show. It is October the 6th, 2020. I am here, Scott, with Anthony, two-man crew today. Anthony, how are you doing?
Not too bad, Scott. Not too bad.
Got treated to another Monday Night Doubleheader last night. Overall, pretty good games. Let's start looking at it from the fantasy perspective. You wrote this article earlier today. Aaron Rodgers is on a freaking warpath. Like 4 touchdowns, 327 yards, hasn't thrown a pick all season. Who would have thought this would have happened? Like going into the season, I don't think any of us thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be able to do this, especially missing Devonta Adams for over 2 games and Packers not getting him any help whatsoever. How does this make any sense? Can he keep this up?
Well, I, for one, did not think Aaron Rodgers was going to be doing this season. But you know what? I guess that's what I get for doubting Aaron Rodgers. He's a bad man. He's a bad man. And you know what? I think he's going to be able to keep this up. And only for the fact that they do play in the NFC North. So they still got to play the Vikings again. They play the Lions again. And I don't even think they played the Bears yet. Also, I'm not too sold on the Bears defense. So I'm just thinking this is going to be a really, really good year for Rodgers. Probably, depending on how he does. I mean, he could very well win MVP. And, I mean, from the looks of it, he doesn't even really need Devontae Adams. It's just going to be overkill once Devontae Adams comes back.
It's absolutely insane. He's forcing his way into that MVP discussion because he hasn't thrown a pick yet. He's thrown, 13 touchdowns through 4 weeks, no interceptions?
Yep.
Like
no picks at all.
There was all this talk about, Aaron Rodgers, he's on decline. And when you look at him for the past couple of years, he has been in decline. But I wrote about this after week 1. I think Aaron Rodgers is just playing pissed off. Like just trying to stick it to the Packers and say, hey, look, you drafted my replacement. I can still do this. I'm going to make it Jordan Love's not even going to see the field for what? It's got to be trying to, make Jordan Love sit on the bench for at least the next 2-3 years. And this is just incredible. Like Robert Tonyan Jr., 6 catches, 98 yards, 3 touchdowns. Who the fuck is that guy? Like,
basically.
No idea who he is. No idea who he was going into this year, but he has 5 receiving touchdowns on the year. Like, this is just nuts. Aaron Rodgers is making do with whoever. And on the topic of Packers tight ends, Josiah DeGuara is out for the year with a torn ACL. But from the looks of things, it doesn't look like he was going to be contributing much from a fantasy perspective anyway. We all thought it was going to be Jay Sternberger. But no, fucking Robert Tonyan Jr. comes out of nowhere.
3rd year, undrafted. It's really just it's crazy. All Aaron Rodgers does is just make these undrafted guys into like the perfect waiver wire pickups, and then if you're lucky enough to get them off the waiver wire, nobody is prepared for it. Like last night, I had to go up against Aaron Rodgers and Robert Tonyan, so I didn't fare too well.
Oh, you poor soul.
Yeah. I went into the game up 20 and lost by 30.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that wasn't too good. But it's just I don't know. It just really is crazy. But it goes to the fact of you are as good as your quarterback is fantasy-wise for wide receivers and tight ends. And with Aaron Rodgers playing the way he is, it's almost like anybody on the Packers could very well have fantasy value at this moment.
I think any and almost every receiver on the Packers has some form of fantasy value. Like, Jamal Williams caught 8 balls for 95 yards.
Yeah, like where did that come? Where does Jamal Williams come from? He just rides the bench.
He's a running back. Like,
he comes out of nowhere. It's crazy.
It's absurd. Looking at it from the Falcons' point of view, Matt Ryan had an okay game. 285 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Todd Gurley had a bit of a bounce-back game. 57 yards, 16 carries, 2 rushing touchdowns. How good can Todd Gurley be for fantasy? Like, was this like just a little glimpse of the past? We talked about this before. People can turn back the clock for a couple plays a game, but can he do this consistently?
See, Todd Gurley, he kind of surprised me that he even had 2 touchdowns this game. I wasn't expecting much from him. I still don't expect much from him. I think this was kind of just a flash in the pan. The Falcons, they have a lot of problems, and Todd Gurley, he's not the guy he used to be with LA. He's not running the ball 25 times, 30 times anymore. But I will say with Julio Jones out and Calvin Ridley is a little banged up right now, I think for at least for the next couple of weeks that Todd Gurley will have, more fantasy value than what he normally would, being that Matt Ryan might just have to dump it off to him out of the backfield out of desperation.
Yeah, I honestly don't really know if anyone on the Falcons outside of Matt Ryan has any real fantasy value. Because Julio Jones, again, tweaked his hamstring, I believe. Questionable going into his week. Short week. Not ideal. I don't think he's going to play this week. Calvin Ridley's banged up. It seems like the entire Falcons team finds a way to get hurt. They're always trailing, and that helps for Matt Ryan, but when you don't put up a passing touchdown in a game where you were trailing the entire time, that's a little concerning fantasy-wise.
Yeah, that's it's not too good. And Matt Ryan, just even from watching that game last night, like there was a couple times he had Calvin Ridley wide open and just was not letting it rip. And I don't know if that's him just, I don't know if he's just getting old and he doesn't have confidence in his arm anymore, or the Falcons just continuing to suck is starting to get in his head.
It could be. Going on to the other Monday Night Football game, New England Patriots visited the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs won 26-10. You don't give a shit about that. You care about the fantasy value. Patrick Mahomes, 236 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 16 carries, 64 yards. Leading receiver was Travis Kelce with 3 catches for 70 yards. Tyreek Hill, 4 catches, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Nicole Hardman, 4 catches, 27 yards, and a touchdown. How does this speak to the ability for Patrick Mahomes to just always be steadily consistent in terms of fantasy? Because he also had 28 rushing yards.
Yeah. I would say Patrick Mahomes is just on a different level than every other quarterback in the NFL, and it's just apparent. Because the New England Patriots, they had a pretty solid game plan for him. I mean, it was 6-3 in the first half, and they kicked 2 field goals, the Chiefs. So they were in relatively holding him in check. It's just, I mean, even when you hold him in check, he still throws for over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and still doesn't turn the ball over. So it's almost like when you play perfect and he still plays better than you did, it's just a little demoralizing. But Cole Hardman, I expected him this year to take another step up and really work out his rapport with Patrick Mahomes. Like, it just seems like the same thing that we were saying with Aaron Rodgers, that almost any receiving player on the Packers has fantasy value at this point. I think the same with the Chiefs. I think anybody that gets playing time at receiver or tight end other than Travis Kelce, they'll have fantasy value. I mean, Patrick Mahomes can throw a touchdown pass to literally anybody. I think last week he threw a touchdown pass to his left tackle. So it's just
big man touchdown.
Big man touchdown. I love I love the big boys getting touchdowns. But, Patrick Mahomes, he's just worlds better than everybody else right now. And, I mean, tell you what, next year I would not be surprised if I see him going even earlier than he went this year in some drafts.
I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think that we crowned Clyde Edwards-Helaire as this great fantasy running back way too early?
Because
after week one,
yep,
phenomenal game, tore up the Texans for 138 yards and a touchdown. But that's his only touchdown on the year. He hasn't had more than 64 rushing yards since then. He had 64 against the Patriots, 64 against the Ravens, 38 rushing yards against the Chargers. I mean, he's been doing all right at the receiving end. I mean, against the Chargers, he had 6 catches for 32 yards. Against the Ravens, 5 catches for 70 yards. And against the Patriots, 3 catches for 27 yards. We were thinking that, this guy's going to be an elite fantasy running back. That's not elite fantasy running back potential. You can't not elite fantasy running back production. You can't be an elite fantasy running back if you don't score touchdowns.
I would say I really think that everybody crowned Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a top 5 running back this year. And you could say it was because of his workouts or what he did at LSU. But honestly, I think that we all just were crowning him that way just because of the offense that he was on. And I think it speaks even more for him that he's on this type of offense with Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. The air attack is ridiculous for the Chiefs. So you know that nobody can just sit there and stack the box against them. And yet he still really hasn't done much outside of that first game. I don't know really what to expect from him, but I just think that he was way too overhyped coming out of college.
I feel like that one game against the Texans is kind of the story of the Texans. Because when you look at the Texans, James Conner tore him up for 109 yards on 18 carries and a touchdown.
Right.
The Texans' defense just isn't good. The Ravens had their way with him. Gus Edwards averaged 7.3 yards a carry. Mark Ingram averaged 6.1 yards a carry and a touchdown. I think it's more of overreaction to a solid player beating the crap out of a bad team. Would you agree?
I totally agree. Texans got a boatload of problems, but their defense is not – it just honestly is not good. They just have J.J. Watt, and, he's not the 3-time defensive player that he used to be. He's still very good.
He's still a good player.
Still very good. Still one of the best, D linemen in the NFL. But outside of that, they really don't have much there. I mean, who else do they have, really? They're Jadeveon Clowney.
Nope, he's gone.
You don't got the Honey Badger anymore. He's in Kansas City. I mean, it just seemed like any good piece that the Texans had on defense, not even on defense, just in general, just ends up
going.
Yeah, well, that's Bill O'Brien's fault. And, he's gone now. So
we saw what happened. We saw what happened with him.
Yeah.
Looking at it from the Patriots side of things, they had 2 quarterbacks play. Brian Hoyer, 130 passing yards and a pick. Jared Stidham, as fellow friend and writer Alex says, 60 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. I think this means that that Patriots quarterbacks have no fantasy value unless your name is Cam Newton.
Yeah, 100%. Brian Hoyer, listen, we all know Brian Hoyer is not the best quarterback out there.
That's being nice.
That's just being very nice. I could be real mean, but you know what? I'll say.
Try to keep it positive.
Yeah, positive attitudes here. But you know what, Bill? I think it just really speaks to Bill Belichick. I mean, the fact that they were very much in that game. I mean, honestly, the final score really doesn't even tell the story of how that game was because it came down to about 2 plays. Just the fact that Brian
City scored 13 points in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that you had Brian Hoyer actually in a game. Now, I will say Bill Belichick did make a mistake of putting him in over Stidham because although Stidham did throw 2 interceptions. I think that as a
For a
backup,
touchdown.
yeah, he threw a touchdown, and I think as a backup, he should be the one that's going
Give the
in.
young guy the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, he should be going in when Cam's not there.
Yeah. Gonna bring this up. Patriots running back Damian Harris, 100 yards on 17 carries. Can Damian Harris be a starting caliber fantasy running back? Sony Michel just went on IR.
See, I don't trust Patriots running backs literally at all. I don't trust any of them. Every time you get one of them that go I think it was a couple years ago where James White was just lighting up the league for 2 weeks and then he disappeared. And I mean, even early on this season, you got Rex Burkhead was scoring 30 points. It's almost like the situation in San Francisco where it could just be any running back on any given day could be the one that's going to be lighting it up for 20 points. It remains to be seen if Damon Harris keeps his role carrying the workload. I know James White, he had a couple of 2 weeks off. The tragedies, dad died and all that. So I don't really expect James White to really be getting back into a groove, for a while here. So, maybe Damon Harris. Listen, if you're struggling at running back, I would take the chance. Might as well. He is on a Bill Belichick offense. Still could do something for you.
Definitely. One thing I'm going to give credit to Trey right here. Leading receiver for the New England Patriots was Damiere Byrd. Trey's, who the fuck is that guy picked from episode 2 of the Vendetta Sports Fantasy Show? 5 catches, 80 yards, with what I believe we can both agree was very subpar quarterback play. Can Damiere Byrd emerge and develop into a wide receiver 2 in fantasy?
See, I tell you what, I do like Byrd. I thought that he was playing a great game despite the terrible quarterback play. But when Cam comes back, and it's not like Cam's hurt, he's just got to clear the COVID protocol. And from what I understand, it should be sooner rather than later. So, when Cam Newton comes back there, I think Byrd will have emerged enough to, maybe get some trust from Cam, and maybe Cam looks to him more often. So I'm thinking Byrd can be a viable wide receiver too.
I think he definitely can. It's also mainly because there's almost no one around him. I mean, Julian Edelman, I think he's led the league in drops since 2018.
Julian Edelman.
We talk about Stidham's 2 interceptions. Julian Edelman gift wrapped one of them.
Yep. Not on the quarterback there.
That was not on Stidham's fault. It was just a gift wrap from Edelman to the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I feel like what's happening to Julian Edelman is kind of what we talked about with AJ Green, and the fact that he's just getting old. He's just not going to be able to do it anymore. It's a point where, as a receiver, you just get too old and you just can't do it. And Damiere Byrd adds speed, much needed speed, to the Patriots offense that they were just missing. And N'Keal Harry, he caught a touchdown, but only 21 yards on 3 catches. Not a lot to be impressed with there. If any of you give a crap about kickers, Nick Folk made a field goal. Kickers matter too.
Kickers do matter.
And moving on from that, when Cam Newton comes back, because we've been talking about him being on this tear, can he keep it up? Or our defense is going to be able to learn and figure out what he's doing? Or is there a chance that this was all kind of just a flash in the pan?
Well, to be honest, I've been very high on Cam Newton ever since the Patriots picked him up. I even said this right when the Panthers released him or cut him, whatever they did. I knew. I was just sitting there. I was like, I could very well see Cam Newton going to New England. Tom Brady leaves. Cam Newton comes in, and now Bill Belichick has a very good mobile quarterback that he can draw up any crazy thing he wants with Josh McDaniels. And you know what? It'll work just because they're the Patriots. And I think that Cam Newton will come back, and I think he will continue on the tear that he was on before he was out, like that 31-point game he had in fantasy against the Seahawks. Honestly, I just think Cam Newton is in a really good place up in New England, and he's not the guy he was in 2015 anymore. But listen, I'll take a 75% Cam Newton over most other quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, Cam Newton, all his fantasy value comes from his rushing ability. Like me and Trey, we've said this numerous times on the show, how, this Patriots offense, like, good chance it looks a lot like the Tebow Broncos. A lot of spread option, read option plays, quarterback design runs. That's because that just fits Cam Newton's skill set. And the offensive play designer, Josh McDaniels, is the same for both offenses, with Tebow and with the Broncos in 2011 and now back with the Patriots. I'm going to say this. When I was talking about if Cam Newton could succeed, Trey also said this, there are just so many different outcomes because we had no idea what was going to happen because we saw him play 2 games, and that was with essentially a broken foot. It wasn't a broken foot, but it was Liz Frank needed surgery. Going to dub it a broken foot. I'm not a doctor. Okay, what do you want from me? And so I still want to see him be able to do this over the course of the season. It's been great in the early season, but that's really all been from rushing, which is Cam Newton would expect. And moving on, we're going to look ahead to the Thursday night game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Chicago Bears. Both teams are 3-1. Game will be in Chicago. From a fantasy perspective, looking at the injury report, Mike Evans is questionable. Chris Godwin's questionable. Scotty Miller's questionable. Gronk's questionable. Leonard Fournette is questionable. Can Brady have a repeat performance? We saw what he did to the Chargers. Can he have a repeat performance against the Bears?
Honestly, I wouldn't buy too much into that Chargers breakout that Tom Brady just had because, look, the Chargers were banged up on defense to begin with. And, the Bears, they have an okay defense. I'm not that high on them, but just it's going to depend on if his weapons are there. I mean, listen, you are not a better quarterback if you don't have guys like Mike Evans and Gronkowski to throw to. It's, it's just that simple. And even with Leonard Fournette, him being questionable too, you're better when your guys are going to be playing. So if they don't play, I mean, short week, games in 2 days. So if things don't vastly improve by tomorrow, who knows if they're going to play. But I mean, it is Tom Brady. He's going up against Nick Foles, guy that did beat him in the Super Bowl. The only other person that beat him outside of Eli. So I don't know.
He just hates the NFC East.
Yeah, Tom Brady just can't stand the NFC East. It's funny too because they're the worst division in the NFL, and they have been for about 20 years. But Tom Brady just seems to lose to them in the Super Bowl for some reason. But I don't know if Tom Brady will have that great of a game. I mean, you could add in the factor of maybe he uses that Super Bowl loss like kind of like a motivation thing going up against Nick Foles again. But it's all going to depend on Mike Evans and guys like Gronkowski and Mills if they can play.
Yeah. One thing I will say that coming out of that Chargers game, Scotty Miller looked good.
He did.
My boy Scotty Miller looked good.
He did.
5 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. If it weren't for Nick Chubb getting hurt, I might have beat Trey that week. But also, O.J. Howard is on IR with a torn Achilles. So the weapons on that Tampa Bay offense are just falling off left and right. And also, like you said before, like when are the Chargers not banged up with injuries? Like when is someone not hurt?
It's really crazy with them.
Like missing Derwin James. Like he's a game changer on defense. He has the potential to just swing a game on the defensive side of the ball. And Brady was getting some solid protection, which that's what I've been saying a lot. It's going to be more of can the protection hold up? Can he be kept clean? Can he be given the time to be able to hit these deep throws? And we saw that on Sunday. Are we going to see it again? I don't think so. I don't think he's going to be able to get adequate protection from that Bears pass rush. So, look, Kane can fucking ride his high horse that his team, I don't know what depth did to him, but he hates it. He has a starting lineup. That's it. And he scored 167 fantasy points in week 4. One person didn't even score many points. He got 0 points from someone. It's nuts.
That's insane.
So you know what, Kane, you can have that. It's not going to happen again. Because there's no way you get 30 points from 3 players, 25 from another player. I don't see it happening. And yeah, I'm not liking anyone on the Tampa Bay offense just because of injuries. They're going against the Bears. Tom Brady's not going to be able to keep it up. Going to the Bears offense, I do not want to mess with Bears starting quarterbacks in fantasy. I refuse to do it. Their running back, David Montgomery, isn't even that good. Tariq Cohen's on IR. Allen Robinson is really the only bright spot on this Bears team. Would you agree? Or do you think someone else has the potential to be a decent fantasy player?
Yeah, honestly, no, because I started Anthony Miller this week out of desperation because I had Deontay Johnson who couldn't play because of the Titans' COVID situation. Mike Thomas didn't suit up again, so I was left with starting Anthony Miller. And you know what? I'm sitting here thinking, he had a pretty decent game when Foles came back in, but that might have just been because they were playing the damn Atlanta Falcons. I mean, they went up against the Colts, who honestly it looks like the Colts probably have the best defense in the league right now, I'd say. And they held Foles and that offense to pretty much nothing. They couldn't do a single thing. And, I don't know. Are they going to fare much better against the Bucs defense? They probably will fare a little bit better, but Allen Robinson still looks like Foles' favorite target. Don't look for Anthony Miller too much. He's just – I don't even want to talk about him.
Sorry, you finished?
No, I was going to say, and David Montgomery, honestly, I gave up on David Montgomery about a year and a half ago, so I don't expect him to do really anything either.
One thing I will say, Foles is the type of quarterback who is going to risk. He's going to make risks. Like, I'm sure Bruce Arians would love him because no matter what the tendency, Foles will always take shots down the field. And when it works, you're like, look at this guy. He's taking shots down the field. And when it doesn't work, it's like, what the hell are you thinking? But it's great for fantasy receivers. It's great for Allen Robinson. Foles just not throwing like fuck it balls, but kind of saying fuck it and throwing the ball. If you get what I mean. It's not total reckless abandonment, stupidity. It's more of I'm going to give my guy a shot for it, which, for fantasy, you want your receivers to have a quarterback like that.
Yeah.
Because Nick Foles, we saw in the Super Bowl run, when he got comfortable and he was taking chances, they were working. His receivers were making plays for him. And he was also giving his receivers the opportunity to make plays. Outside of Allen Robinson, I really don't think anyone is good on the Bears. Jimmy Graham came out of nowhere and had 60 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Falcons.
Yeah.
Which is against the Falcons.
Yeah, exactly.
So, honestly, your fantasies, if you're starting anyone in this game, start Allen Robinson. It'd be better if you didn't have to start anyone, but if you have to, start Allen Robinson.
And if you're not starting Allen Robinson on the Bears, I would say look somewhere else than the Chicago Bears.
Not the best offensive team for fantasy.
No, not even close.
All right, you got any closing thoughts?
All I would say is, I tell you what, there is one game I'm thinking about this weekend. Giants-Cowboys. Giants will lose this game. I'm not going to trick myself into thinking they're going to win, but I do think that it could be a high-scoring game, being that the Cowboys' defense is absolutely atrocious, and the Giants' defense isn't that much better. So maybe this is the game where Evan Ingram finally wakes up.
Maybe. Also, watch out. If for some reason you have to play against Aaron Rodgers in the future,
yeah.
good luck.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty much all I gotta
overall,
say.
avoid the Thursday night game for fantasy. That's all I got to say. And check out the website, vendettasportsmedia.com. Check out Twitter, media_vendetta. Buy a shirt. Subscribe to our YouTube. Check out our Maximum Football series with Jackson. He's going to have an update video. Might have already come out. If not, be on the lookout for that. And until next time, thanks for watching.